The year is 1850. The oceans, vast and untamed, are a battleground. Whaling ships, their harpoons sharp and their intentions grim, scour the waves, driven by the insatiable demand for oil. But amidst this brutal pursuit, a different kind of vessel sails, guided by a different kind of compass. Meet the Orion. Not a whaler, but a ship of quiet purpose. Her sails patched, her timbers weathered, yet her spirit unyielding. Her crew, a motley collection of seasoned mariners and idealistic young men, are bound by an extraordinary oath to protect, not to hunt. Their mission, whispered in hushed tones across the decks, is to safeguard the leviathans of the deep, especially the legendary white whale, Moby Dick, whose very name strikes both fear and obsession into the hearts of men. Our protagonist is Captain Elias Thorne, a man whose eyes hold the wisdom of countless voyages and the burden of a profound secret. He carries a worn, leather-bound journal, its pages filled not with whaling logs, but with intricate drawings of marine life, anatomical sketches of whales, and cryptic notes on ancient currents and forgotten migratory paths. He's often seen gazing at the horizon, not for the telltale spout of a hunted whale, but for something else entirely. Something he believes is connected to the very soul of the ocean. The Orion is currently navigating the treacherous waters of the Pacific, far from the usual whaling grounds. Rumors of Moby Dick's recent sightings have reached them, tales of his destructive power, his cunning, and his almost supernatural ability to evade capture. The whaling fleet, a formidable armada of iron will and sharp steel, is converging, driven by the promise of glory and immense profit. Captain Thorne knows their path will soon intersect with this relentless pursuit. One stormy evening, as the Orion battles towering waves, a distress signal pierces the howling wind. Not a flare, but a series of frantic, desperate blasts from a ship's horn, barely audible over the tempest. It's a whaler, caught in the throes of the storm, its mast splintered, its hull breached. Common sense dictates they avoid it. Whalers are rivals, often hostile to those who don't share their brutal trade. But Captain Thorne, his face grim, gives the order: prepare to render aid. Every life matters, even those lost to the hunt. As they approach the crippled vessel, the scene is chaotic. Sailors cling to wreckage, their cries swallowed by the wind. But amidst the chaos, Elias spots something else: a small, sturdy wooden crate emblazoned with a strange, stylized symbol. A whale's tail entwined with an anchor. It's the emblem of the Brotherhood of the Deep, a legendary, almost mythical order of mariners whispered to protect the ocean's giants. Elias recognizes it from his father's old sea charts, a symbol he thought long forgotten. They managed to rescue several survivors, including the whaler's first mate, a gruff, suspicious man named Silas. As Silas is brought aboard, his eyes, though weary, are filled with a strange, possessive glint. He clutches a small leather-bound box, guarding it fiercely. "We were close," he rasps, his voice hoarse. "So close to the white devil. He came out of nowhere, like a ghost, and took our mast. But we got something. Something important." Later that night, as the storm begins to subside, Elias overhears Silas speaking in hushed tones with another rescued sailor. "The charts," Silas whispers, "they show his true path. Not just where he's been, but where he's going. And the secret, it's in the box." Elias's heart pounds. Could this whaler inadvertently hold the key to Moby Dick's movements? And what secret could be so important? Suddenly, a piercing shriek echoes from below deck. One of the rescued sailors, a young cabin boy, bursts into the galley, his face ashen. "The box! It's glowing. And there's something moving inside." Captain Thorne and Elias exchange a look of profound unease. The Orion, a ship dedicated to protecting the ocean's mysteries, has just stumbled upon one of its most dangerous. The shriek from below deck, followed by the cabin boy's terrified pronouncement, sent a jolt through the Orion. Captain Thorne, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a flicker of urgency, exchanged a knowing glance with Elias. They rushed towards the galley, the other rescued whalers muttering nervously amongst themselves. Silas, the first mate, had already scrambled to his feet, his hand instinctively going to the small, leather-bound box he now gripped tightly. As they entered the dim galley, a faint, pulsing glow emanated from the box in Silas's hands. It wasn't a conventional light, but an almost ethereal luminescence, shifting with subtle, internal movements. The cabin boy cowered in a corner, pointing a trembling finger. "It moved, Captain, like something alive inside." Silas, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and triumph, opened the box slightly. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay a compass unlike any Elias had ever seen. Its casing was intricately carved from an unknown dark wood, and instead of a traditional needle, a shimmering, almost liquid light pulsed within its glass dome, twisting and turning as if drawn by an unseen force. As the box opened, the light within the compass intensified, casting dancing shadows across the galley walls. "This ain't no ordinary compass," Silas whispered, his voice hoarse with awe. "Our old man, Captain Ahab, he found it. Said it showed him the true heart of the ocean. Said it was the only thing that could track the white whale." Ahab, the name hung in the air, a chilling legend. Elias realized the depth of their encounter. This wasn't just any whaler, it was one of Ahab's, a vessel obsessed with Moby Dick to the point of madness. And this compass, it defied logic. It defied science. Captain Thorne, however, stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the strange device. "Where did you find this, Silas? And what do you mean, track the white whale?" Silas clutched the compass tighter. "We found it buried deep in the belly of a leviathan, Not a whale, mind you, but something older. The captain, he believed it was a gift, a guide. It pulses strongest when the white whale is near, and it points not to north, but to him. He looked from the compass to Elias, a desperate plea in his eyes. Our ship's gone, but this is our last chance to finish what Ahab started. Elias felt a surge of tension. Here was the very essence of their opposing missions. Silas wanted to hunt. They wanted to protect. But the compass, it was an undeniable marvel. A tool that could lead them directly to Moby Dick, for good or ill. Suddenly, the Orion lurched violently. A booming crash echoed from the hull, followed by the terrifying sound of splintering wood. The ship groaned, and water rushed into the galley from a newly formed crack in the floorboards. "We've struck something," cried one of the crew. Panic began to spread. Captain Thorne barked orders, his voice cutting through the rising fear. "All hands to the pumps! Silas, show me that compass." Elias quickly assessed the damage. As Elias scrambled to help with the pumps, he glanced back at Silas. The first mate, instead of aiding the ship, was staring intently at the compass. The light within it was swirling frantically, pointing not towards a direction, but downwards, deep into the ocean beneath their feet. And then a new, even more powerful tremor shook the Orion. This was no collision with a rock. It felt like something vast, something alive, was brushing against their hull. A deep, resonant groan vibrated through the ship, a sound of immense power, of ancient life. The compass held in Silas's trembling hands suddenly pulsed with a blinding flash, and a single enormous eye, as white as alabaster, briefly materialized in the swirling light within its dome, staring directly upwards. The spectral eye in the compass, Moby Dick's unmistakable gaze, vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving Silas gasping, the compass now a dead, dull object in his hand. The Orion, however, continued to groan and shudder, the sound of splintering timber growing louder. Water surged into the galley, quickly reaching their ankles. The collision, the shuddering contact with something immense, confirmed Elias's chilling suspicion. Moby Dick was not just near. He had brushed against their hull. Panic threatened to overwhelm the crew. They were a small, vulnerable vessel, and the legendary white whale was known for his destructive power. For whalers, this was a deadly encounter. For the Orion, whose mission was protection, it was an unimaginable paradox. Captain Thorne, his face grim but resolute, took command. "No time for fear. Elias, report on the damage. Silas, put that compass away and help with the pumps or be thrown overboard." Elias plunged below deck, the water already thigh-deep, sloshing violently with the ship's continued tremors. The main hull was breached, a gaping wound below the waterline. They were sinking, and fast. The pumps, old and slow, were no match for the torrent. Despair began to set in amongst the crew. This was the end for the Orion and for their noble mission. Just as all hope seemed lost, a new sound reverberated through the ship. Not the groan of timber, but a deep, rhythmic thrumming, like a colossal heartbeat emanating from the ocean depths. The ship, which had been sinking rapidly, suddenly slowed its descent. The water level in the hull seemed to stabilize, even recede slightly. Elias, bewildered, looked around. Outside the breached hull, through the swirling green water, he could see a massive white form. It was Moby Dick, not attacking, but supporting the ship. His enormous body was pressed against the hull, plugging the worst of the breach, his powerful tail subtly maneuvering beneath the keel, keeping the Orion afloat. The whale, the creature of legend, was holding them up. A profound sense of awe washed over Elias. This wasn't the monstrous, vengeful beast of Ahab's tales. This was an act of profound, almost impossible grace. The creature they had sworn to protect was now protecting them. He rushed back to the deck, shouting to Captain Thorne, "Captain, it's Moby Dick. He's holding us up. He's saving us." Thorne, who had been barking orders, paused, disbelief etched on his weathered face. He rushed to the rail, peering into the dark water. And there, undeniable, was the vast white form of the Leviathan, its intelligent eye seemingly gazing up at them, a silent, powerful guardian. Silas, who had followed, stared in stunned silence, his hand still clutched on the now inert compass. The white devil was their unexpected savior. The act of salvation, however, came with a new tension. How long could the whale sustain them? And what would happen when he left? As if in answer to Elias's unspoken question, the great whale slowly began to pull away, its massive form rippling through the water. But as he departed, he left behind more than just a memory of his aid. A faint, almost imperceptible sound resonated through the Orion's hull, a low melodic hum that seemed to vibrate from the very depths. And as the sound resonated, the now dull compass in Silas's hand began to glow faintly once more, pointing directly into the receding currents where Moby Dick had vanished. This time, it wasn't frantic. It was a steady, resolute pull, leading them not to a hunt, but perhaps to a purpose. Chapter 4. The Path Unseen. The rhythmic hum left in Moby Dick's wake resonated through the Orion's hull, a sound both ancient and profoundly guiding. Silas's compass, once a hunter's tool, now pulsed with a soft, steady glow, its shimmering internal light pulling towards the receding currents where the white whale had vanished. The near-fatal encounter had shifted something fundamental aboard the Orion. Fear still lingered, but it was overshadowed by a profound, almost spiritual awe. Captain Thorne, his gaze fixed on the open sea, finally spoke, his voice tinged with wonder. "He saved us. the very beast they hunt. Why? Elias, still processing the immense whale's act of mercy, theorized aloud. Perhaps he's not the vengeful demon Ahab believes. Perhaps he's aware of our intentions. Or perhaps he sensed something else entirely. He pointed to the compass. This isn't leading us to hunt him, Captain. It feels like it's leading us after him to understand. Silas, still shell-shocked by Moby Dick's intervention, looked at the compass in a new light. His decades of ingrained whaling instincts warred with the impossible reality he had just witnessed. The white devil had spared them, had saved them from the very storm it was supposed to embody. He slowly extended the compass to Elias. What do we do with this? It's all that's left of our old life. And maybe the start of a new one. Captain Thorne made a decision. We follow it, not for the hunt, but for the truth. If Moby Dick saved us, there's a reason, and we owe him that much. The crew, though weary and shaken, found a renewed purpose in their eyes. The Orion, once merely a protector, was now on a quest for understanding, guided by an impossible compass and the ghost of a whale. For days, they followed the compass's unwavering pull, venturing into stretches of ocean rarely traversed by ships. The waters grew colder, the light dimmer, as if they were sailing into a forgotten corner of the world. The hum from the compass intensified, growing into a low melodic thrum that seemed to fill the very air around them. It was a serene, almost hypnotic sound, calming the agitated sea and lifting the spirits of the weary sailors. Then, as the compass's light reached a near-blinding brilliance, a colossal, shimmering archway of ice materialized out of the fog-shrouded horizon. It was impossibly vast, towering hundreds of feet above the waves, its surface glowing with an internal ethereal light. It wasn't a natural formation. This was a structure ancient and immense, a gateway to something unknown. The compass in Elias's hand pulsed, directing them straight towards its heart. As the Orion glided silently beneath the arch, the very air around them changed. The water grew still, eerily calm, reflecting the soft, inner glow of the ice. The temperature became oddly temperate, defying the frigid Arctic air outside the archway. And then, through the shimmering light, they saw them. Colossal, silent figures, frozen within the ice walls, their forms indistinct, yet undeniably biological. These were not whales. They were something else entirely, immense, graceful beings, preserved in suspended animation within the heart of the ice, like sentinels of a forgotten age. The Orion drifted deeper beneath the colossal ice arch, surrounded by a profound, otherworldly silence. The towering walls of frozen water pulsed with an ethereal glow, revealing more of the immense silent figures entombed within. They were diverse, graceful, and utterly alien. Some resembled elongated serpentine forms, others vast, multi-limbed creatures, and still others possessed an almost human-like elegance but on a scale that defied imagination. Elias realized he was looking at a hidden pantheon, a gallery of unknown leviathans preserved in crystal. The air within the archway hummed with the same melodic resonance as Silas's compass, a sound that seemed to emanate directly from the frozen titans. It was a hymn of preservation, a silent symphony of ancient life. Elias, overwhelmed, felt a sense of profound reverence. These were not mere animals. They were custodians of an ancient secret, guardians of the very essence of the ocean. Captain Thorne, usually stoic, gazed at the frozen forms with a mixture of awe and trepidation. "What are these things, Elias? Are they sleeping?" Before Elias could answer, a subtle shift occurred within the ice. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor rippled through the colossal archway, and one of the largest figures, a serpentine creature with intricate, glowing patterns on its surface, seemed to flicker. The patterns resembled constellations, ancient star maps, moving slowly across its frozen hide. And as the patterns shifted, a new light emerged from its center, a soft, pulsating beacon that drew the eye. The compass in Elias's hand throbbed, its internal light now mirroring the rhythm of the pulsating beacon in the ice. It was drawing them not just through the arch, but to a specific point within this frozen realm. Captain Thorne gave the order to proceed. The crew, though unnerved, compelled by the sheer mystery surrounding them. As they approached the giant serpentine creature, the ice around the beacon began to melt, slowly at first, then rapidly, revealing a small, perfectly spherical chamber. Inside, floating in a viscous, luminous fluid, was a single intricately carved golden sphere. It was no larger than a cannonball, yet it radiated an immense energy, a concentrated hum that resonated with the compass. And etched onto its surface were symbols that mirrored the shifting patterns on the frozen Leviathan's body. Celestial charts, ancient script, and repeating sequences that felt oddly familiar to Elias, almost like a code. Suddenly, a distant, piercing wail echoed through the ice arch, a sound of profound rage and determination. It was the unmistakable cry of a whale hunter's horn, followed by the ominous thrum of a steam engine. The whalers, tenacious and relentless, had somehow followed them, drawn perhaps by the very energy now emanating from the ice. The calm of the frozen pantheon was about to be shattered. Captain Thorne's face hardened. "They found us. They'll stop at nothing to get what they believe is theirs." He looked at Elias, then at the glowing golden sphere. "We have to protect this, Elias. Whatever it is, it's connected to everything." The tension in the air was palpable, a clash of ancient secrets and modern avarice. Just as the first whaler ship emerged from the shimmering entrance of the archway, its harpoon cannons glinting menacingly, the golden sphere inside the ice chamber pulsed, once violently, and then expelled a blinding flash of light. The light enveloped Elias, lifting him momentarily from the deck, and then, with a profound resonating hum, the sphere projected a perfect three-dimensional image into the center of the Orion's deck. It was a map not of the ocean's surface, but of its deepest currents, its hidden chasms, and its forgotten passages. And on this map, glowing brighter than any other point, was a single, unmistakable mark: the location of Moby Dick. Not in these frozen waters, but far, far away, in a place only the currents knew. The sphere had just given them the ultimate guide, but now they had to escape the very hunters they sought to avoid. The projected map, shimmering above the Orion's deck, was a breathtaking marvel. It showed Moby Dick's precise location, not as a static point, but as a living trajectory through unseen currents and forgotten underwater passages. It was a lifeline, a divine blueprint given to them by the golden sphere. But the moment of wonder was shattered by the arrival of the whalers, their steam-powered vessel now looming ominously at the archway's entrance, its harpoon cannons swiveling into position. Captain Thorne barked orders, his voice cutting through the suddenly frigid air. "Hard to starboard. Prepare to make sail. Elias, can you decipher this map? Can it guide us out of here?" Elias, his mind racing, realized the map wasn't merely a navigational chart. It showed not just physical routes, but complex pressure systems, thermal vents, and even subtle shifts in the Earth's magnetic field, a hidden language of the ocean itself. "It's not just a path, Captain," he shouted over the rising wind. "It's a guide through the ocean's very breath, but it's intricate, designed for something that moves with the currents, not against them." The whaler's horn blared, a chilling declaration of intent. Harpoons whistled through the air, striking the massive ice arch, sending cracked spiderwebbing across its glowing surface. The silent, entombed leviathans within seemed to stir, their light flickering in response to the assault. The delicate balance of this hidden sanctuary was being shattered. Silas, the rescued first mate, stood mesmerized by the map, a newfound purpose in his eyes. "That's not just a map for the whale, Captain," he muttered. "It's a path away from them, a path through the unseen." He pointed to a faint, shimmering line on the projection, indicating a narrow, impossibly deep trench. Only a fool or a leviathan would attempt that passage. Captain Thorne looked from Silas to the map, then to the incoming whaler. "Then we'll be fools. Full speed ahead." The Orion, under the guidance of the impossible compass and the shimmering map, veered sharply, heading straight for the ominous trench. The whaler, caught off guard by their sudden maneuver, hesitated for a crucial moment. As the Orion plunged into the depths of the trench, the light from the ice arch dimmed, swallowed by the crushing darkness. The pressure mounted, the ship groaning under the immense weight of the water. Elias watched the map intently, guiding the helmsman through jagged underwater canyons and treacherous currents, relying on the Golden Sphere's guidance over traditional navigation. The whaler's lights followed them, relentless, their steam engines' thrum echoing ominously in the deep. Just when it seemed the pressure would crush the Orion, the map pulsed violently, and a new image appeared, a colossal, almost perfectly circular hole in the trench wall, shrouded in bioluminescent algae. "Through there!" Elias yelled. "It's a passage." The Orion scraped through the narrow opening, its timbers protesting loudly. As they emerged into a vast, hidden grotto, the light of the whaler vanished behind them. They were safe for now. But the grotto was not empty. From its dark corners, massive shadowy forms began to stir, illuminated by the faint glow of the bioluminescence. These were not the frozen giants of the ice arch, but living creatures, ancient and powerful, their eyes glowing with an eerie intelligence. They were the true denizens of the deep, undisturbed for millennia, and the Orion had just stumbled into their sacred domain. The air in the hidden grotto was thick, humid, and filled with the faint, rhythmic pulse of unseen life. The shadows cast by bioluminescent algae danced on the grotto walls, revealing more of the colossal forms that now surrounded the Orion. These were not whales or known marine species. They were creatures of nightmare and wonder. Leviathans whose lineage stretched back to primordial times. Their skin shimmered with scales of iridescent pearl and obsidian. Their eyes glowed with an ancient, knowing intelligence. And their movements were slow, deliberate, a silent, powerful warning. Elias recognized some of the faint patterns on their skin, echoing elements of the blueprint from the Golden Sphere, but distorted as if seen through a warped lens. These were the true guardians of the abyss, creatures that had evolved in the crushing darkness and immense pressure, protecting secrets deeper than any ocean trench. Captain Thorne, though a man of vast experience, was visibly awed. "By the Maker," he whispered, "we've sailed into a forgotten world." One of the largest creatures, resembling a colossal, many-tentacled squid, its body pulsating with a soft, internal light, slowly extended a massive appendage towards the Orion. It was a gesture of immense curiosity, not aggression. Elias felt a connection, a silent communication from the creature. It seemed to be assessing them, weighing their intentions. Suddenly, a new sound echoed through the grotto, the distant thrum of steam engines. The whaler had found another way in, perhaps through a connecting passage, determined to hunt them down. The peaceful, ancient sanctuary was about to be violated. The colossal guardians of the abyss began to stir, their silent scrutiny turning into a low, resonant growl that vibrated through the Orion's hull. Silas, ever the pragmatist, saw their opportunity. "Captain, we can use them. They'll tear that whaler apart." But Elias shook his head. No, we came to protect, not to incite. These creatures are not weapons. They are part of the ocean's true heart. We must find a way to escape without drawing them into our conflict. Captain Thorne agreed. Elias is right. We navigate out, quickly and quietly. He turned to the helmsman. Ready the sails. We'll use the currents. Elias, the map? The golden sphere's projection flickered, responding to the growing tension. A new path shimmered into existence on the map. A treacherous route through narrow, winding tunnels. Too small for the whaler, but just barely navigable for the Orion. It was a desperate gamble, a passage that seemed to weave through the very bodies of the ancient guardians. As the Orion began to maneuver, sliding silently through the grotto, the first mate from the whaler, a man named Brand, emerged from their ship's prow, his face contorted in a sneer. There they are, the whale lovers. And look what they've found, boys. A treasure hoard. He clearly mistook the luminous guardians for some form of immense, docile prey. Brand ordered his men to lower a harpoon. The shaft whistled through the water, aimed not at the Orion, but at one of the colossal abyssal creatures. Elias gasped. A direct attack would surely provoke them into a rage that would doom all ships present. Just as the harpoon was about to strike, a massive white form darted from the shadows of the grotto, moving with impossible speed. It was Moby Dick. He intercepted the harpoon, catching it on his immense, scarred flank, deflecting it harmlessly into the grotto wall. He then turned, not towards the whaler, but towards the colossal abyssal guardian that was about to be struck. With a silent, powerful gesture of his mighty head, he seemed to communicate a wordless assurance. The ancient guardian paused its imminent attack. Moby Dick was acting as an intermediary, a cosmic arbiter. He then moved, slowly but deliberately, positioning his vast body between the Orion and the enraged whaler, shielding them, silently urging them onward. The Orion slipped through the narrow passage, Moby Dick holding the whaler at bay. As they emerged into open water once more, leaving the grotto and its ancient guardians behind, Elias looked back. Moby Dick, his great white form illuminated for a moment by the last vestiges of the grotto's bioluminescence, gave a single majestic tail slap, a farewell, and then vanished into the deep. He had once again intervened, not as a monster, but as a silent protector, leaving Elias with a chilling question. How much more did this legendary whale know about the ocean's hidden world, and what was his true purpose in it? Moby Dick's majestic farewell, his silent, powerful gesture of protection, left Elliot and the crew of the Orion in stunned silence. They had witnessed not just a legend, but a profound intelligence, a will to protect that defied all human understanding. The whaler, Brand's ship, was nowhere in sight, likely still grappling with the ancient guardians of the grotto, or perhaps simply too stunned to pursue. The Orion sailed on, now guided by a deeper sense of purpose. The Golden Sphere's map, still shimmering faintly on the deck, continued to point towards Moby Dick's elusive path. But it was no longer just a pursuit. It was a pilgrimage. Elias spent hours poring over the map, noticing new details, faint, glowing symbols that appeared and disappeared, hinting at specific times and celestial alignments. It was as if the map was not merely showing where Moby Dick was, but why he was there and what he was doing. He realized that Moby Dick wasn't just evading hunters. He was on his own mission, a journey dictated by a purpose far grander than mere survival. The white whale seemed to be visiting specific hidden points in the ocean, places marked on the map by the ephemeral symbols. What was he doing at these locations? Was he collecting something? Activating something? One day, as they navigated a vast, shimmering expanse of open ocean, the Golden Sphere's map pulsed violently, and the light within Silas's compass spun wildly, then settled, pointing directly downwards. The sea beneath them began to glow with a soft, internal luminescence emanating from the depths. It was the same ethereal light they had seen within the ice arch, the light of the frozen leviathans. Captain Thorne ordered the sails lowered, and the Orion drifted silently over the glowing patch of ocean. Elias peered into the depths, his heart pounding. The light grew stronger, revealing not just bioluminescent creatures, but massive, intricate structures rising from the ocean floor. They were colossal, crystalline formations, resembling ancient temples or vast submerged cities, built from a material that seemed to absorb and re-emit light. And etched into their surfaces were the same patterns, the same celestial charts he had seen on the frozen pantheon in the ice arch. This was another sanctuary, another hidden realm. But this one was different. As the Orion drifted closer, Elias saw movement. Not the slow, silent drift of the frozen giants, but fluid, graceful motion. Immense shadowy forms, far larger than any known whale, glided through the luminous city. They were the same species as the frozen beings, but these were alive, moving with an ancient, serene purpose. They were the architects of the deep, the true inhabitants of these hidden realms, and they were performing a silent, intricate dance around the glowing structures. Suddenly, a massive scarred tail emerged from the depths, followed by the unmistakable white form of Moby Dick. He was here, within this sacred city, but he wasn't alone. He was swimming alongside one of the colossal architects, his smaller form almost dwarfed by its immense companion. Moby Dick seemed to be communicating with the architect, a silent exchange of understanding. He was not just a whale, he was an emissary, a bridge between two worlds. As Elias watched, mesmerized, the architect extended a massive luminous tendril towards Moby Dick. The tendril touched the whale's flank, and a wave of pure, resonant energy pulsed outwards, enveloping Moby Dick. The white whale's scars, the marks of countless battles, began to glow with a soft, internal light. And then, slowly, miraculously, they began to fade, healing before Elias's very eyes. Moby Dick was not just being healed. He was being renewed, his ancient wounds erased by the architect's power. It was a profound act of restoration, a promise of a new beginning. The sight of Moby Dick's scars fading, his immense body renewed by the architect's touch, sent a wave of wonder and hope through Elias. This was not just healing. It was a profound act of cosmic restoration, a testament to the architect's power and their connection to the very essence of life. The golden sphere's map pulsed with a gentle warmth, reflecting the serene energy of the submerged city. Captain Thorne, his voice hushed, muttered, "He's not just a whale, Elias. He's a vessel, a sacred one." Silas, who had witnessed the impossible, dropped to his knees, his face etched with a mixture of awe and repentance. All this time, we hunted him. We hunted a miracle. His compass, now glowing steadily, seemed to hum in agreement. As the architect completed its healing ritual, Moby Dick turned, his intelligent eye meeting Elias's gaze across the luminous water. There was no aggression, no fear, only a profound sense of shared understanding. The whale then gave a single powerful tail slap, not of farewell, but of invitation, urging the Orion to follow. He was leading them deeper into the mysteries of the ocean, towards a truth that transcended human comprehension. The Orion followed Moby Dick, navigating through the glowing crystalline city. The architects of the deep, silent and majestic, parted to let them pass, their luminous forms casting long, dancing shadows on the ship's hull. Elias realized that these beings were not just guardians of hidden realms. They were the very source of the ocean's life force, the silent pulse that sustained its ecosystems and guided its currents. They reached the heart of the city, a vast, open chamber where the light was most intense. In the center, a colossal, swirling vortex of pure energy pulsed, emanating a low melodic hum that Elias recognized as the Song of Genesis he had heard in the Antarctic. This was the living current, the very wellspring of the ocean's power, a conduit to the cosmic energies that sustained all life. Moby Dick swam towards the vortex, his renewed body shimmering in its light. He paused at its edge, then, with a powerful surge, plunged into the swirling energies, his white form momentarily lost in the incandescent light. Elias gasped, fearing the worst. Had the whale sacrificed himself? But then a new light emerged from the vortex, brighter and more intense than before. Moby Dick reappeared, but he was changed. His body now pulsed with the same ethereal luminescence as the architect's, and his scars, though gone, were replaced by faint, swirling patterns of light, mirroring the blueprint he had seen on the golden sphere. He was no longer just a whale. He was a conduit of the living current, infused with its power, a living embodiment of the ocean's sacred energy. As Moby Dick emerged, the entire city pulsed in response, and the golden sphere on the Orion's deck began to spin rapidly, its projected map expanding to show not just the ocean's currents, but the very ley lines of the Earth, the hidden energy pathways that connected all life. The sphere was revealing the planet's true nervous system, its hidden circulatory network. Suddenly, a piercing mechanical shriek echoed from outside the grotto. The whalers. They had found another way in, perhaps through sheer brute force, shattering the delicate balance of the hidden realm. The peaceful hum of the living current was replaced by the ominous thrum of steam engines, and the glow of the city flickered with the approaching threat. Moby Dick, now a being of pure light and power, turned, his luminous eye fixed on the encroaching danger. He was no longer just a target. He was a protector, ready to defend the sacred heart of the ocean. The thrum of the whaler's steam engines grew louder, a grating cacophony that desecrated the serene hum of the living current. The luminous city flickered, its ancient structures momentarily losing their glow as the mechanical intrusion approached. Moby Dick, now a being of incandescent light, turned towards the grotto's entrance, his immense form radiating a silent, formidable power. He was no longer just a whale. He was a guardian, ready to defend the sacred heart of the ocean. Captain Thorne, his face grim, grasped the Orion's helm. They're here, and they won't stop. He looked at Elias. What's the plan, lad? We can't fight them here, not without risking this entire place. Elias, his mind racing, glanced at the golden sphere's expanded map. It now showed not just the Earth's ley lines, but also faint, pulsating points within the ocean's depths, far beyond the grotto. These were other living currents, other well springs of cosmic energy. He realized Moby Dick's transformation wasn't an isolated event. It was part of a larger interconnected system. We need to lead them away, Captain. Draw them out of the grotto. Moby Dick is protecting this place. We can't let them desecrate it. Silas, his eyes fixed on the entrance, clutched his now glowing compass. They'll follow us. They always do. Especially if they think we found their prize. He pointed to the golden sphere. That's what they want. They think it's treasure. Just then, the whaler ship, Brand's vessel, burst into the grotto, its harpoon cannons primed, its crew shouting with bloodthirsty glee. Brand himself stood at the prow, a triumphant sneer on his face. There they are. And look at that light. They've found something precious, boys. Harpoons ready. Moby Dick, with a powerful surge, positioned himself directly in front of the Orion, his luminous body acting as a shield. He let out a low, resonant roar, a sound that vibrated through the water, shaking the very foundations of the grotto. It was a warning, a challenge, and a promise of immense power unleashed. The architects of the deep, previously silent, began to stir, their vast forms moving to flank Moby Dick, their ancient eyes glowing with a protective intensity. Brand, undeterred, ordered his men to fire. Harpoons whistled through the water, aimed at Moby Dick. But the transformed whale moved with impossible speed, deflecting the harpoons with his tail, sending them harmlessly against the grotto walls. He then turned not to attack, but to create a diversion. With a series of powerful tail slaps, he churned the water into a violent maelstrom, obscuring the Orion and creating a chaotic barrier between them and the whaler. "Now," Elias yelled. "Full speed. Follow the compass." The Orion surged forward, propelled by the currents Moby Dick had created. They slipped through a narrow, hidden passage that appeared on the Golden Sphere's map, a route only visible for a fleeting moment. The whaler, caught in the maelstrom, struggled to maneuver, its crew shouting in confusion. As the Orion escaped the grotto, leaving the enraged whalers and the formidable architects behind, Elias looked back. Moby Dick, a beacon of pure light, was still holding his ground, facing down the whaler, his roar echoing through the depths. He was sacrificing his own safety to ensure their escape and the protection of the sacred city. The Orion burst from the grotto, leaving the chaos behind, but not the danger. The Golden Sphere's map, now shimmering with a frantic urgency, pointed them towards a new perilous route, a series of deep-sea caves, known only in ancient mariners' legends as the Serpent's Embrace. It was a labyrinth of crushing darkness and treacherous currents, a place where no ship dared to venture. Captain Thorne, his face grim, looked at Elias. "These caves, they're said to swallow ships whole. Are you certain this is the way?" Elias, though fear gnawed at him, felt an unwavering conviction. "The map is guiding us, Captain. Moby Dick saved us. He wouldn't lead us to our doom. This must be the only way to truly lose them." He pointed to a flickering symbol on the map, a faint outline of a serpentine creature. "And it seems we won't be alone." As the Orion plunged into the first cavern, the sunlight vanished, replaced by an inky blackness so profound it felt suffocating. The air grew heavy, damp, and the only sound was the creak of the ship's timbers and the rhythmic drip of water from unseen stalactites. The Golden Sphere's light, however, intensified, casting an eerie glow on the cavern walls, revealing colossal, ancient carvings of serpentine beings, their eyes glowing with faint, phosphorescent light. These were the true serpents of the Embrace, not mythical beasts, but powerful entities that had shaped these very caves over millennia. The currents within the caves were ferocious, pulling the Orion in dizzying spirals, threatening to smash them against the jagged rock formations. The crew fought valiantly, straining at the helm and sails. But the ship was a toy in the grip of the ocean's raw power. Despair began to creep in. They had escaped the whalers, only to be trapped in a watery tomb. Suddenly, the Golden Sphere's map pulsed violently, and a new path, impossibly narrow, shimmered into existence. It led directly into a swirling vortex of water, a maelstrom that seemed to lead nowhere but oblivion. "Through there!" Elias yelled, his voice strained. "It's a shortcut. The map says it's the only way." Captain Thorne, seeing no other option, gave the order. The Orion plunged into the vortex, spinning wildly, the crew clinging desperately to the rails. The world dissolved into a blur of churning water and blinding foam. They were sure this was the end. But then, as quickly as it began, the vortex spat them out. The Orion emerged into a vast silent chamber, its walls glowing with a soft internal light. The air was still, the water calm. They were safe, and they were not alone. From the glowing walls, colossal serpentine forms began to emerge, their scales shimmering with iridescent colors. These were the living serpents, the true guardians of the embrace. They were not monstrous, but majestic, their eyes filled with an ancient wisdom. They moved with a slow, deliberate grace, circling the Orion, their presence radiating a profound, protective energy. Elias realized they had been guided, not just by the map, but by the very beings who inhabited these depths. Just as a sense of relief washed over the crew, a new sound echoed from the passage they had just exited, the distant thrum of steam engines. The whalers, relentless, had somehow navigated the treacherous vortex. They were closing in. The serpents of the embrace, sensing the intrusion, began to stir, their previously serene expressions hardening. Their bodies pulsed with a fierce protective light, and a low resonant growl, far deeper than any whale's, vibrated through the chamber. They were ready to defend their sanctuary. But Elias knew this was not their fight. He had to find a way to escape without drawing these ancient, powerful beings into a conflict that wasn't theirs. The golden sphere pulsed, its light now reflecting a new, desperate path. A single faint opening at the very top of the cavern, leading upwards toward the surface, towards an unknown destiny. The sight of the whalers' lights nearing the grotto's entrance ignited a fresh wave of panic aboard the Orion. The serpents of the embrace, their immense forms now radiating a protective fury, began to gather, their low growls vibrating through the cavern. Elias knew they had to act, and fast. The Golden Sphere's map, now their sole guide, showed a single improbable escape route. A narrow, vertical shaft leading upwards, piercing through hundreds of feet of solid rock and ice towards the surface. "Captain there!" Elias shouted, pointing to the glowing aperture high above them. "It's a vertical passage. It's tight, but it leads out." Captain Thorne squinted upwards, his face grim. A vertical shaft? In this behemoth? It's madness, Elias. We'll scrape the hull to splinters, or worse, get wedged in there forever. Silas, however, his eyes fixed on the encroaching whalers, felt a familiar surge of desperation mixed with a newfound hope. Better stuck than caught, Captain. They won't follow us up a chimney. The decision was made. With the whalers now visibly entering the chamber, their harpoons glinting in the bioluminescent light, Captain Thorne gave the order. All hands, prepare for vertical ascent. Brace yourselves. The Orion, a ship built for horizontal travel, groaned in protest as they navigated towards the shaft. The serpents of the embrace, sensing their desperate maneuver, parted, their glowing bodies creating a funnel, subtly guiding the ship towards the ascent. Their growls intensified, turning into a resonant, powerful hum that seemed to push the Orion upwards. It was an unexpected act of assistance, a testament to the ancient creature's understanding of their shared plight. The ascent was agonizingly slow. The Orion's hull scraped against the rough-hewn rock, sending shuddering vibrations through the deck. Dust and ice rained down on them. Elias, clutching the railing, watched the golden spheres map intently, guiding the helmsman through minute adjustments to avoid critical damage. The whalers, seeing their escape route, bellowed in frustration, firing desperate harpoons that bounced harmlessly off the reinforced walls of the passage. Just as they neared the top, a section of the shaft above them began to collapse, dislodging immense boulders that plummeted downwards, threatening to crush the Orion. Despair welled up in Elias. They had come so far only to be trapped at the precipice of freedom. But then a colossal white form surged upwards from below, passing through the falling debris with impossible speed. It was Moby Dick, his luminous body now pulsing with an even greater intensity, acting as a living shield. He nudged the largest boulders, deflecting them away from the Orion, creating a clear, albeit precarious, path to the surface. He was still with them, still guiding them, defying the very laws of pursuit. With a final powerful push from Moby Dick, the Orion burst through the surface, gasping for air as fresh, cold ocean spray washed over its decks. They were free. Above them, the stormy sky of the Arctic stretched out, vast and unforgiving. Below them, the shaft glowed faintly, and then the light vanished, sealed off once more. Moby Dick gave one final resonant breach, his white form briefly silhouetted against the dark clouds, a promise fulfilled, and then vanished back into the depths. They were safe, but stranded. The Orion's hull was severely damaged, taking on water. They were in uncharted, ice-filled waters, far from any known shipping lanes. And out there, somewhere, the whalers were still hunting, their obsession rekindled by the impossible escape. The Orion drifted, a wounded bird on an endless canvas of gray sky and tumultuous waves. The immediate relief of escaping the deep-sea caves quickly gave way to the harsh reality of their predicament. The hull was compromised, taking on water faster than the pumps could handle, and they were surrounded by treacherous ice floes in an unknown frigid stretch of the Arctic. The Golden Sphere's map, though still glowing, offered no immediate answers for survival, merely hinting at distant, complex energy currents. Captain Thorne, his face etched with exhaustion, surveyed the damaged ship. "She won't last much longer. We need land or a miracle." The crew worked tirelessly, bailing water, patching lakes, but their efforts felt futile against the relentless ocean. Despair, a far more insidious enemy than any whaler, began to set in. Elias, however, refused to surrender. He clutched the Golden Sphere, its warmth a constant reminder of the incredible journey they had undertaken. Moby Dick had saved them twice. The architects and serpents had aided them. There had to be a reason, a purpose for their survival. He focused on the sphere's map, trying to decipher the faint, shifting energy patterns. They seemed to converge on a single point, far to the north, beyond the icy horizon. Suddenly, a powerful tremor ran through the Orion, not from the ship's distress, but from the ocean itself. The sea around them began to crack and heave, and colossal formations of ice, far larger than any floe, slowly began to emerge from the water. They were not jagged natural icebergs, but smooth colossal structures, some resembling immense shimmering cathedrals, others vast spiraling towers. Their surfaces glowed with an internal ethereal light, radiating the same pervasive hum as the Golden Sphere. Elias gasped. These were the very architectures of the deep he had seen on the map, the hidden cities. But now they were rising from the ocean, pushing through the surface, transforming the frozen landscape. They were vast, living ice structures, imbued with the same cosmic energy as the architects and the serpents. This was another manifestation of the blueprint, another stage of the second Genesis, playing out before their very eyes. As the ice structures continued to rise, forming an impossibly intricate labyrinth of glowing pathways, the Golden Sphere's map projected a new clear image, a passage, a glowing channel of calm water, leading directly into the heart of this emerging ice city. It was an invitation, a sanctuary. Captain Thorne, seeing the miraculous unfolding before him, gave a choked laugh. "A miracle, Elias. A true miracle." He ordered the helmsman to steer the failing ship into the glowing channel. The Orion limped forward, its timbers groaning, but held afloat by the very energy emanating from the ice structures. As they entered the calm channel, the temperature rose, the biting winds subsided, and the air filled with the fresh scent of ozone and something else, something vital and ancient. The ice city hummed around them, its pathways forming and reforming with a silent, deliberate purpose. They had found refuge in a living, breathing landscape. Just as they reached a vast central basin within the ice city, a new phenomenon began. From the base of the massive ice structures, swirling columns of shimmering light began to ascend, rising into the sky like ethereal pillars. And within these light columns, shapes began to form, indistinct at first, then coalescing into familiar figures. They were whales, hundreds of them, of every size and species, shimmering with the same ethereal light as the structures around them. They were not physically present, but spectral, ethereal, made of pure light, rising from the heart of the ice city and ascending into the heavens. It was a mass exodus, a glorious ascent. Elias, watching in stunned silence, realized the truth. This was a cosmic ark, not made of wood, but of light and energy, carrying the essence of these magnificent creatures into a new dimension, a new existence. This was Moby Dick's true mission, and the purpose of the living current, to guide these beings through a great cosmic transition. But as the last of the spectral whales ascended, a single massive form paused, shimmering brightly at the zenith of the light column, its intelligent eye fixed directly on the Orion. It was Moby Dick, not as a physical whale, but as a being of pure energy, awaiting something or someone. Moby Dick, now a being of pure ethereal light, hung suspended at the zenith of the grand light column, his luminous form radiating an immense, silent power. His intelligent eye, still unmistakably his own, fixed on the Orion, not with expectation, but with a profound, almost ancient understanding. The spectral whales, having completed their ascent, were gone, dissolved into the swirling cosmic energies above. Elias felt an overwhelming pull, a silent, insistent call emanating from the transformed Moby Dick. It wasn't a voice, but a knowing, a deep understanding that transcended language. The golden sphere in his hands pulsed in harmony with the luminous Leviathan, its map now displaying not just terrestrial ley lines, but intricate cosmic pathways, showing a convergence point in the vastness beyond Earth's atmosphere. Moby Dick, when calling the Orion to follow. Captain Thorne, his gaze fixed on the celestial whale, seemed to understand instinctively. He's waiting, Elias. He's inviting us. The Orion, though damaged, felt revitalized, buoyed by the subtle energies of the ice city. The despair that had threatened to consume them was replaced by an almost ecstatic sense of purpose. But their moment of revelation was abruptly shattered. A low, insistent thrum echoed through the ice city, growing rapidly louder. It was the unmistakable sound of steam engines, far too many for a single whaler. And from the intricate channels of the living ice, sleek, dark forms began to emerge. Not just Brand's ship, but an entire whaling fleet, their harpoon cannons gleaming menacingly, their crews a mob of grim determination. They had followed the energy signature drawn by the immense power emanating from the ice city, believing it to be the ultimate prize, the final grand hunt. Brand, his face contorted with a vengeful triumph, stood at the prow of the lead ship. There they are, the whale lovers. And look what they've done, stirred up the very heavens for their abominations. Harpoons ready. We end this now. The fleet spread out, encircling the Orion and the central light column, their harpoons aimed not just at the ship, but at the shimmering form of Moby Dick himself, oblivious to his ascended state. They saw only the legendary white whale, the ultimate trophy. Captain Thorne roared orders to his crew. Prepare for engagement. We protect him. Whatever happens, we protect the ascent. The Orion, outmatched and outgunned, turned to face the onslaught. Elias gripped the golden sphere, his heart pounding. They couldn't fight an entire fleet. It was a hopeless stand. Just as the first volley of harpoons was fired, whistling through the air towards Moby Dick, the luminous Leviathan at the zenith of the light column let out a silent, resonant surge of energy. The entire ice city pulsed in response, its crystalline structures vibrating with immense power. The light columns around Moby Dick intensified, blindingly bright, and then, with a speed that defied comprehension, they began to retract, pulling Moby Dick, and the very essence of the blueprint, higher, faster, toward the celestial gateway. The whaler's harpoons struck empty air. Moby Dick was ascending, completing his cosmic journey. But as he ascended, the ice city below, drained of its core energy, began to groan. Cracks appeared, not just in the glowing structures, but in the very foundations of the immense glacier. The living current was withdrawing, its purpose fulfilled, leaving the physical world behind. The sanctuary was collapsing. The ground beneath the Orion bucked violently as the ice city began its catastrophic collapse. The roar of cracking ice mingled with the desperate shouts of the whaling crews, now caught in a maelstrom of destruction they had inadvertently triggered. Above them, Moby Dick, a beacon of pure light, continued his ascent, shrinking rapidly as he disappeared into the closing celestial gateway. He was gone, his mission fulfilled, leaving behind a world in chaos. Captain Thorne bellowed over the cacophony. "She's breaking up. Elias, is there any way out?" Elias, clutching the golden sphere, its light dimming but still warm in his hands, stared at the collapsing ice. The map on its surface flickered erratically, showing not a path to safety, but a single incredibly faint point of light deep beneath the fracturing glacier. It was a last, desperate chance, an impossible gambit. "There's one way, Captain. Down, into the core of the city, before it implodes." The whaling fleet, caught between the collapsing ice and the desperate desire to find Moby Dick, was in disarray. Their obsession had led them to the precipice of their own destruction. Brand's ship, the lead whaler, was caught in a newly formed chasm, its hull screeching as the ice crushed it. With no time to lose, Captain Thorne steered the Orion directly into the collapsing heart of the ice city, through fissures opening in the glowing structures. They plunged downwards, the sound of grinding ice deafening, the pressure immense. The crew braced for impact, convinced this was their final moment. But just as the Orion was about to be crushed, the golden sphere in Elias's hands pulsed one last brilliant time. A wave of shimmering energy radiated outwards from the ship, resonating with the very core of the imploding ice. The collapsing ice around them seemed to shimmer, then solidified into an impossibly smooth, transparent tunnel, guiding the Orion through the tumultuous depths. It was Moby Dick's final gift, a parting blessing from the architects of the deep, a pathway forged from the very essence of the blueprint. The Orion shot downwards through the heart of the collapsing glacier until it emerged into a vast, hidden cavern beneath the ocean floor. The cavern was immense, illuminated by soft, phosphorescent fungi, and filled with surprisingly calm water. They were safe for now. Above them, they could hear the muffled roar of the glacier's final collapse, the death knell of the old world's ignorance. As the echoes faded, Elias looked around the cavern. It was not empty. Scattered across the cavern floor were dozens of small metallic spheres, each pulsing with a faint internal light, identical to the golden sphere he held. And resting gently among them, nestled in a bed of soft, bioluminescent algae, was a single immense, perfectly preserved white whale skeleton, its bones glowing faintly. It was Moby Dick, not the living creature, but his physical shell, left behind after his ascension. A testament to his earthly existence and his cosmic journey. The Orion had not just saved Moby Dick, they had witnessed his apotheosis. The golden sphere in Elias's hands, now the only one truly active, pulsed with a renewed purpose. The map on its surface had changed once more. It no longer showed the Earth's ley lines or cosmic pathways, but a single profound question etched in ancient symbols. What will you do with the knowledge? The ocean's secrets were now theirs, the fate of the blueprint in their hands. The world above would assume Moby Dick was lost, another whale taken by the deep. But Elias knew the truth, and the Orion, the ship that saved Moby Dick, was now tasked with guiding humanity into a new dawn. A future where the oceans held not just whales, but the very keys to the universe itself.